Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Bricker with Supermetrics. I'm joined by Nick Baldessare from an agency named Imajery in Canada. Today, we're going to explore how marketing agencies can transform the overwhelming amount of data from various sources like your Meta ads, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, and GA4 into actionable strategies that drive results for your clients. Our goal today is to equip you with the knowledge and tools to streamline data, extract meaningful metrics, and translate these insights into impactful marketing strategies. Today's session is designed for both seasoned marketers and those just starting out. So whether you're looking to refine your existing processes or you're new to the world of data-driven marketing, there should be something for everyone in here. So let's go ahead and get started. So a brief introduction to today's session. We'll just go over some housekeeping here. We'll start out with understanding the data challenge, progress to some analytics techniques, review some case studies and the role of the analyst in all of this, give our conclusion, have a short Q&A, about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we hope you stay connected in the future. But in this digital age, data for us is abundant, but making sense of it can be a significant challenge. So marketing agencies in particular face the real daunting task of deciphering data from multiple platforms. This data, while rich in potential insights, can often feel like a deluge that's difficult to manage. Our focus today will be on understanding the data landscape, identifying key methodologies for synthesizing disparate data sets, and exploring advanced analytics techniques. We'll discuss how you can align your marketing insights with your clients' ever-evolving objectives and use advanced analytics to uncover hidden opportunities and optimize your marketing efforts. Throughout this webinar, we'll share proven methodologies, best practices, and some real-world examples of agencies that have successfully transformed their data analytics into actionable strategies and how that affected the outcomes for their clients. We'll also highlight the resources you can leverage to elevate your agency's performance. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a clear roadmap for mastering the art of analytics consolidation, how that can help your organization, help your clients, and what that looks like in totality for your organization, how to manage. So the first thing we want to talk about really is understanding the data challenge. And that data challenge comes with this apocryphal statement of big data. The concept of big data is a term that's sort of ubiquitous with the marketing world. For a lot of people, it refers to the massive volumes of data generated every second from a multitude of sources. From my perspective, big data is something that can mean anything from a few dozen sheets or even a few thousand lines or rows of data coming in via CSV, all the way to exceeding gigabytes and terabytes and petabytes, and as we see here, zettabytes, we had 120 zettabytes of data created in 2023. All this data being generated, what that looks like for your agency and your organization. So this data, when harnessed correctly, really holds the key to unlocking valuable insights about consumer behavior, preferences, and trends. However, the sheer scale and complexity of big data also does present really significant challenges. So when we want to talk about this, big data is something I really kind of lean more towards talking about what it means to you. As I mentioned, whether you're doing a few dozen rows or a few thousand rows of data where you have to manually pull that in, if you're one of the smaller agencies, or even if you're a larger agency that's still doing things in kind of a manual way, automating that is going to really help you tame this big data problem. And big data to me is really whenever you have too much data, where it causes you to lose time in analysis. So as I said, that can be very little, or in retrospect, depending on the size of your organization, can be a vast amount of data from all these different platforms like the Meta ads, Google ads, those previously mentioned. Each platform also generates data in different formats with varying degrees of granularity. The volume of data can be overwhelming, making it difficult to discern meaningful patterns without the right tools and methodologies to tackle that. One of the primary challenges with this data is managing these different characteristics, specifically volume, variety, velocity, and as well as veracity. So volume obviously refers to the sheer amounts of data that can be generated, which can be terabytes, petabytes, how much that means to you. Variety pertains to the different types of data. Now, a lot of this data will be structured in JSON files or coming through APIs, but it can also include data that is coming from plain text files. It can include images, videos, especially now that we have all these different platforms that focus more on user-generated content. That data is becoming in many cases, more and more unstructured. Also, we talked about velocity. So that's the speed at which the data is generated. And keeping up with that speed is something that is very, very difficult. If you want to stay on top of it, that requires real-time or near real-time analysis. And that can be very costly, can be very expensive in both time and resources. And as I mentioned before, veracity of the data. So one of the big things that we have is the ability to trust the data. I actually gave a talk last year where another one of my panelists on the panel asked if I trusted the data coming from Google Ads and Facebook Ads. What they are reporting to me, is that accurate? The easy answer is, well, I have to trust it because I'm using them. That's the easy answer. But the reality is that it's in their best interest in order to report accurate data to me, because if I start analyzing it and looking at some of my first-party data and find out that it's different, then maybe I may not advertise with them. So that's something to think about as well, the veracity of the data. When data is automated, that veracity is a little more ensured because you're getting it directly from the APIs. If that data is being processed manually, whether you're going out to a website in order to copy numbers down and push them over into a spreadsheet, or you're getting it emailed to you from someone, it's coming in from different formats, or you're just copying and pasting over, that introduces a lot of potential for error. So that's where automation comes in, sort of taming this big data problem and what that means to you. And without these proper integration techniques with these inconsistent formats, valuable insights can remain hidden within all of the noise that's being generated. So that's something we also want to tackle here. However, all is not lost. Overcoming these challenges is possible with the right strategies and tools. So by investing in robust data management systems and adopting advanced analytics techniques, agencies can transform this big data problem into something that is actionable insight. And that's really where the transformation starts to happen. Once we can tame this big data, and this sort of like apocryphal quote here, we can get back into actionable insights that really helps understand consumer behavior more deeply, but also helps you make data-driven and data-informed decisions that drive better marketing outcomes for both yourself and your clients. So in summary, while big data does present significant challenges, it also offers immense potential. And by effectively managing and analyzing this data, the agencies and individuals can gain a competitive edge, deliver more personalized and impactful campaigns for their clients. Continuing from our discussion of big data, we're now going to turn our focus on how automation and efficiency in data synthesis can help overcome these challenges and drive better outcomes for marketing agencies. So in this big data world, automation is not just a convenience. In reality, it's a necessity. Automation and data synthesis streamlines the integration process, making it faster and more accurate. So when we talk about solutions like ETLs or ELTs, more commonly, you'll probably see ELTs more often, which is extract, transform, load versus extract, load, transform. They allow you to seamlessly integrate data from all these various sources that we talk about. And this reduces the manual effort involved and minimizes the risk of errors that can arise from manual data handling. One of the big key benefits of automation is efficiency. So by automating repetitive and time-consuming tasks, your team can redirect their focus towards more strategic activities, such as analyzing the data and deriving those actionable insights. The amount of time spent on data munging, which we'll mention, is where you pulling in the data and making sure it's accurate, formatting the data in such a way, whether that's a Google Sheet or a data warehouse, eats into the time that you have to go to analyze and be more strategic about how you're using your data. So this not only saves time, but enhances the overall quality of your analyses. With automated processes, your data can always remain up to date and provide a near real-time view of your marketing performance. Automation also plays a crucial role in scalability. So as your data volume grows, automated processes can handle the increased load without requiring significant additional resources. The importance here is when you're automating early. So if you're right now pulling into Google Sheets, or we're pulling in data into these smaller sources, automating can have a lot of benefits. If you're managing 5 clients, something similar to that, where you're like, I can manage right now with Google Sheets, absolutely, you probably can. It also is probably taking up a significant amount of your time. By automating, you can reduce that time, and that will help you future-proof yourself from when you have not 5 clients, but 10, 15, 20 clients, where now, if it was taking you a couple of hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours, something like that during the week, it's now taking 10 or 15 hours, which is really eating into the time that you have to analyze and develop these strategic plans for your clients. So by doing this and automating early, you can ensure that you continue to derive valuable insights even as your data landscape becomes ever more complex. In addition, automation enhances data accuracy. As we mentioned, if you're doing a lot of manual data handling, you're prone to errors. We're all human, we all make mistakes, and that can lead to incorrect insights or misguided decisions. So if I'm copying and pasting data over from a spreadsheet that I got from somewhere, or if I'm going into each of the individual platforms, as I'm sure many of us have done before, looked at the numbers and then put them into a deck or put them into a CSV or something to analyze later, we can make mistakes. And the automated process does reduce those mistakes because the automated process will follow consistent rules and checks, ensuring that your data is accurate and reliable. Along with that also comes whether you're talking about a built solution or a bot solution. In the bot solution, you do have you pass off a little bit of the responsibility of the accuracy. You trust that your solution will be pulling in the data accurately. There's also the thought there of, I have to create my query, so making sure your dimensionality is accurate with what you're seeing on these platforms. So accurate data is the foundation for making these informed decisions and driving your marketing strategy forward. Another significant advantage of automation is the ability to respond quickly to changes. In this fast-paced digital world, agility is key, and automated processes enable you to rapidly integrate these new data sources, update your analysis, and adjust your strategies based on the latest insights. This helps you stay ahead of the competition and adapt to market changes as quickly as you're analyzing the data. So, by embracing automation, we drive these efficiencies in synthesis. Marketing agencies can then transform the challenge of big data into more of an opportunity, which is really where we want to be, right? And that automation empowers you to focus on the strategic analysis, drive those impactful results, which sets the stage for our next topic about when we're delivering these results, who we're delivering them to. And that's aligning our insights with client objectives to make sure that data-driven strategies are relevant and effective, which Nick is going to discuss next.
Thanks, Zach. So now we've discussed how automation can streamline data synthesis and drive efficiency. The next step in overcoming the data challenge is ensuring that the insights we derive are closely aligned with our clients' objectives. This is where the client-centric analytics come into play. The fundamental principle of client-centric analytics is to ensure that every data-driven strategy we develop directly supports our clients' specific goals. This requires a deep understanding of what our clients are trying to achieve, whether it's increasing brand awareness, driving sales, improving customer retention, or enhancing overall customer satisfaction. To achieve this alignment, the first step is to engage in regular, meaningful communication with your clients. Talk to them, understand their goals, their challenges, and their expectations. This ongoing dialogue allows you to stay updated on any shifts in their priorities and ensures that your analysis remains relevant to their needs. Next, map your key performance indicators, your KPIs, to your client's objectives. For instance, if the client's primary objective is to increase sales, focus on KPIs that involve conversion rates, average order value, customer lifetime value. For clients aiming to boost brand awareness, emphasize metrics like reach, impressions, and engagement rates. By aligning your KPIs with client objectives, you ensure that your analysis directly supports their goals. Using data visualization tools can significantly enhance this process. Dashboards and reports that highlight key metrics and trends in an easy-to-understand format can help clients grasp the data's implications and see how it aligns with their goals. These visualizations make it easier to communicate insights and demonstrate the value of your strategies. Real-world examples and case studies are also powerful tools for illustrating the effectiveness of your approaches. By showcasing how similar strategies have delivered results for other clients, you can build confidence and trust in your recommendations. This not only helps in selling your ideas, but also in establishing a stronger relationship with your clients. Ultimately, the goal of aligning insights with client objectives is to ensure that your data-driven strategies are not just based on data for data's sake, but are targeted and effective in delivering the results that matter most to your clients. This alignment helps you deliver more value, strengthen your client relationships, and ultimately drive better business outcomes. By focusing on client-centric analytics, you can transform the insights derived from automated data synthesis into actionable strategies that are highly relevant and impactful. The approach not only addresses the data challenge, but also positions your agency as a trusted partner in your client's success.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So with that sort of client-centric look, we're going to talk about some of these analysis techniques that we have in order to deliver those results to the clients. And I'm going to break these down into 3 different categories: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. So Each type serves a different purpose and utilizes very distinct techniques to drive insights and actions. Descriptive analytics are, sort of in the name. They describe what has happened in our data recently, or historically rather. So it's summarizing data and sort of looking, just observing for patterns and trends. And by aggregating and reporting on this data, we do gain insight into what has happened into our business, into our campaigns, and for the clients, and start to introduce that sort of why. So when we're looking at descriptive analytics, we're talking about data aggregation and KPIs. We're talking about the big numbers that you put across the top of your dashboard that really start to tell you, they start to form the story, because ultimately a lot of times what we're doing when we're talking to clients is we're focusing on data storytelling. It's not to say that we're making anything up, but what we're doing is trying to give them a view of not only what happened, good or bad, with the marketing campaign, but what those results mean for them, and then how, in addition, you can improve and what it may look like in the future. And then as well, the sort of prescriptive part that we'll get to, which is what are the steps when we inform with descriptive and predictive, how we will move forward. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about predictive analytics. And this is all about forecasting trends and behaviors. So we're looking at the historical data and analyzing it, and we're taking educated predictions about what might happen next. One thing to note with these analysis techniques is a lot of them are highly statistical. They don't necessarily mean that they are 100% accurate, right? You always want to make sure that you're looking at the accuracy of your models and sort of evaluating that as well. You also don't want to be stuck in something that's a black box. We're not really going to talk about machine learning and how that affects it. The machine learning is great, but for a lot of, you really need a lot of analytical rigor for that. You need someone to explain it, and it can be time consuming and very costly. But it is extremely useful. So for example, we can talk a little bit about customer segmentation and prediction that helps identify distinct groups within a customer base, which you can combine with psychometrics to really get a great idea of who your client is. And that allows for more targeted marketing strategies. Spend optimization is another big one, where we analyze spending patterns to recommend cost-saving measures without compromising on performance. Cost-saving measures and spend optimization could be something as predicting certain values in geos. We're looking at different geos and different campaign strategies. You can extend that to creative. You can also extend this additionally into, I guess, the different types of campaigns, whether we're going for conversion or whether we're going for brand awareness. Maybe we can actually drive more if we shift away from conversion optimization into brand awareness. And that's something that happens when we start to look at all of these predictive spaces. And then last is the prescriptive. And this is, for me, prescriptive is sort of the crown jewel of everything, because it takes the descriptive, it takes the predictions that you've made, and it layers it with some human intelligence, as well as additional techniques like A/B testing, which is now very easy. Facebook has made that super easy, or optimization models. Or if you want to go even a step further, we can get into multivariate testing, which requires a great deal of analytical rigor. And that's sort of when you're reaching that end, you're large enough that it supports the investment in that. But prescriptive is about, for me, about keeping the human in the loop. I mentioned about AI and these sort of black boxes where you're just throwing data into a big pile of linear algebra and out pops an answer. That's not really what we're looking for. What we're saying is, let's keep the human, let's keep the analyst in there, and then let's also layer in subject matter experts. We take the descriptions, we take the predictions, and then we start to look at this data. We run a few more techniques, and we layer in our information. I think there's a lot of AI is obviously great. We use it all the time. But when we're talking about these prescriptive techniques, we really want to leverage the expertise that we do have that are really difficult to get into models. A lot of them aren't there yet. Maybe some of them are, but layering in those techniques and layering in those that expertise is going to help you leverage all of these advanced techniques so that marketing agencies like yours can gain deeper insights, make more accurate predictions, and implement strategies that drive significant business results. So understanding and applying these three analyses does allow us to move from simply knowing what happened to understanding why it happened, and then predicting what may happen, and finally prescribing actions that can lead to success for our clients and for our organization. We're going to talk about one of the descriptive techniques that actually does border a little bit of a line between descriptive and predictive in some cases, especially with the new data-driven methods. And Nick is going to discuss with us about attribution and what that looks like for his agency and how they've used it.
Thanks, Zach. So attribution, it's a huge piece of the puzzle. This is what tells us where people are coming from. And as we know, it's getting harder and harder to get proper attribution. So obviously, that's a whole other conversation, but attribution models are huge. Now, what do? They assign values to each touch point on a user's journey on that path to conversion, and it allows us to understand the sequence of interactions and the impact of each step on that journey. This understanding helps us optimize marketing efforts, allocate resources more effectively, and drive better results. Let's take a look at a few attribution models. Last touch attribution, we all know last touch attribution. This is the model that assigns all of the credit on that final interaction before the conversion. It's straightforward and it's often used because of its simplicity. However, it doesn't account for any of the previous steps that might have been crucial to nurturing that lead. First touch attribution, the exact opposite. Now you're giving all the credit to that very first interaction that initiated that journey. It's useful for understanding which channels generate initial interest, but overlooks the influence of subsequent interactions. The linear attribution model is the great equalizer. Every interaction is exactly the same. It spreads the credit equally. So every single touch point is measured the same, and they all get the same value. The only issue here, of course, is that it's not distinguishing between the varying impacts of those different touch points. So another way to look at it is time decay attribution. Time decay attribution is exactly what it sounds like. The older the touch point, the less credit it receives. The more recent, the more credit. It acknowledges that interactions closer to the point of conversion often play a more decisive role in the user's decision-making process. Now we come to data-driven attribution, and here you do have some machine learning involved, and it is a little bit of a black box. Unlike the previous models, which rely on predefined rules, data-driven attribution uses sophisticated algorithms to analyze the value of each touch point based on various signals, including the frequency and order of interactions, the type of content engaged with, etc. It's sometimes described as a black box because the exact workings are not always transparent. However, it offers a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of the customer journey by leveraging vast amounts of data and advanced analytics. It provides insights that are both deep and actionable. Data-driven attribution is gaining traction and becoming the preferred model for many organizations due to its adaptability and continuous improvement. As it processes more data, the algorithms become more refined and accurate, leading to better optimization of marketing efforts. This continuous improvement cycle is something static models just can't compete with. The holistic approach of data-driven attribution aligns perfectly with the complex multi-channel reality of today's digital landscape. Users do not follow a linear path. They interact with brands across various channels and devices, often multiple times before converting. Data-driven models capture this complexity and help us make sense of this, guiding us into making informed decisions that will drive performance. Now, it gets all the more interesting when you start incorporating first-party data. This is data that you're collecting directly from customer interactions, such as website visits, email engagements, purchase history, any kinds of things that are happening offline or outside of the scope of what you're able to track. By leveraging this data, different attribution models can be applied to gain deeper insights and make informed decisions. For instance, if you want to do a long-term analysis and you want to look at multiple conversions per user and you want to say, okay, what is the customer lifetime value being driven by a specific campaign? You can go back to that very first conversion for each individual user and assign the source depending on what you want to look at. For instance, if I'm looking at the very first interaction that they had with us, I can look at that interaction and look at the attribution of all the different touch points and say, okay, I want to look at the very first time that they interacted with us, and I'm going to look at that as when we acquired them. That's kind of looking at the higher end of the funnel. But if I want to look at the very last interaction that they had with us that drove them to actually convert and become a customer, I'm going to be able to take that and utilize it in my planning for what's going to drive that higher long-term value. What final conversion is or final touch point drove that long-term value. By analyzing first-party data in this way, you can allocate resources to channels that attract high-value customers, optimizing your marketing strategies for overall growth. If you're looking to better understanding the final driver for each individual conversion, we can take that last touch attribution model and apply it to each individual conversion. So we can get a better understanding of what's driving things in that last stage before conversion. It helps to answer the question, what are we doing today that is driving users to convert? First-party data allows for effective comparison of different attribution models. By applying different models to the same data set, you can identify the most actionable insights to your business, whether it's driving initial awareness, nurturing leads, or closing sales.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Actually, I had a question there. How do you incorporate first-party data at Imagery?
Well, we have different models, but one that I find to be the most effective is using first-party data in tandem with a call tracking platform like CallRail, because here you can take pieces of information from both to be able to join the data together and see exactly what calls drove what results. And all of those calls in and of themselves have attribution attributed to them by CallRail. So I can look at a data set, as I was describing earlier, and say, okay, I know that this user customer called on this date 1.5 years ago and became a client. And these were the different touch points along that path to that. So I can really break it down and understand what's driving real sales. And then furthermore, I can take the data and upload, if I have those Google Click IDs, which in many cases I do, I can now upload that offline data to Google Ads, and Google Ads can now ingest this data and say, oh, okay, like these leads led to these actual results. And then Google Ads' algorithms can make better decisions.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nick. That was very interesting in how you guys use that. So one thing we're going to talk about now, the next sort of analytical technique, is trend analysis. So we've talked a lot about automating the streamlines, data synthesis, and how we can use, or how leveraging automation can enable things like attribution modeling, can allow our analysts to work more efficiently. But what we really want to see is like, what else can drive these impactful strategies? And trend analysis is a way that we can do that in the predictive space. So it's a powerful technique that helps you uncover patterns in your data over time. And then by identifying these patterns, you can predict future performance, and start to make proactive decisions. Proactive decisions being something that we would really want to look for, because it's a lot better than being reactive. And if we're able to predict a little further out, we have the opportunity to respond before something bad or good happens. In the case, if it's something that we're predicting going to be good, maybe we can push more money into that campaign, as an example. And this is essential for staying ahead of competition and capitalizing on some of these emerging opportunities. Understanding trends involves looking at both short-term fluctuations and long-term movements in your data. So short-term trends can help you identify immediate opportunities or challenges, such as a sudden spike in web traffic or a drop in conversion rates. Conversion rate optimization is another analytical tool that you can also do that is facilitated by automating your data pipelines. Actually, interesting from my previous work, I worked as a data scientist, and instead of monitoring, or rather than monitoring just certain metrics, we were also monitoring a lot of their social data. And we started to monitor that social data. We were able to identify when one of the CEOs tweeted something he maybe should not have, and then respond to that quickly so that we could sort of manage that conversation around what happened. And that was through our analysis that we were looking at. Long-term trends, on the other hand, provide a broader perspective on your marketing performance, helping you understand whether your strategies are driving sustained growth, which is something we're always looking for. If you're not driving sustained growth with your clients, it's going to be really difficult to maintain them going into the future and keeping them around. One of the key benefits of trend analysis is its ability to provide actionable insights, which is something we're always looking for. As we said, we're trying to turn data into action. And so, for example, by analyzing seasonal trends, which all of us do, you can optimize your different marketing campaigns to coincide with peak periods, ensuring that you're maximizing your impact when your audience is the most engaged. Similarly, identifying upward trends in specific product categories can inform your product development and marketing strategies, allowing you to focus on areas with the highest growth potential. In addition, it also enables you to be more agile in your marketing efforts. So As we're sort of moving, everything is becoming faster and faster. Data is coming at us faster. Being able to adapt to changing conditions is really crucial. So by regularly monitoring these trends, we can adjust our strategies in near real time, or at the speed at which we make decisions and respond in shifts in consumer behavior or market dynamics. And this is sort of that proactive approach we're talking about that helps us hopefully stay one step ahead and position our agency to take advantage of new opportunities as they arise. Moreover, trend analysis also helps us measure the effectiveness of our marketing campaigns over time. So this is those tracking those key performance indicators. So that descriptive piece, as we look at these trends over time, we can compare them against our historical data and assess whether our strategies are delivering the desired results. The ongoing evaluation allows you to refine your statistics and your tactics and make data-driven decisions that enhance your marketing performance. So incorporating this is something you definitely want to take advantage of. And the way that you can do that is, typically through bringing in all of your data into an automated platform, like as we mentioned, whether that's all of your data being pushed into a data warehouse, like a BigQuery or Snowflake, or having your data just being pulled in regularly into a Google Sheet, so you can look at it and evaluate it there. You're furthering your efforts to turn that raw data into something meaningful and drive better decision making. So sort of in summary on this one, the trend analysis is a really vital component of some of the analytics techniques that does enable agencies to uncover the patterns. It's obviously not the only one, but it can help us it is a very approachable one to start to predict future performance and make more proactive decisions. It's a very low barrier to entry in that predictive space. You don't have to invest in a ton of time for analysts to be running advanced models. And then, understanding and leveraging these trends, you can stay ahead of that competition, who's probably also, starting to work on this as well and capitalize on those opportunities. And what we're going to talk about next is sort of that prescriptive part, and hear a case study from Nick as well about how Imajery uses that and what the role of the analyst is in sort of this whole process.
Thanks, Zach. So I'll start a little bit talking about my roundabout journey to analyst. I spent the first part of my career, I guess the longest part of my career, as a hospitality professional. Feels like another life now. As a hospitality professional and working in bars and working with a lot of spirits, I spent a lot of time working on Excel sheets and managing my inventory. And as I got more into management and overseeing operations, I got into more complex spreadsheets and more complex analyses. And I started to realize that that was actually what I was even more interested in than food and wine, at least for a job. I'm still really interested in food and wine. So I went back to school and I completely changed careers. And after I had made this change, Imajery was in the process of planning for the sunset of universal analytics. And being ahead of the game all the time, as Imajery is, they were planning for this in 2022 and getting all the bones ready for a data pipeline with Supermetrics to be able to get everything into a data warehouse. And that's where I came in, helping oversee that pipeline, making sure it stayed healthy, making sure the warehouse stayed healthy, and just getting all that data usable for our entire team. So we talked a lot about automation, and it's a huge part of my role as an analyst. I am able to have all of my transfers running daily through the Supermetrics hub, getting data from all the different sources: Google Ads, Meta Ads, Klaviyo, Google Analytics, still able to pull from Universal Analytics for another couple of months. So really everything that we need is coming in automatically on a daily basis and feeding our warehouse. From there, I use a tool called dbt. If any of you know SQL, I highly, highly, highly recommend dbt. It automates the modeling process. So effectively, once you've built your model, those models are rebuilt every day using that refresh data that filled your warehouse. So on the reporting side, all those reports are attached to data sets that are constantly being updated, whether I'm here or not. I just have to worry about building it out in the first place. Now, what I love about Imajery as a group is that the entire paid marketing team is an analyst. Everybody on the marketing team is an analyst. I am more a facilitator of getting that data to them, blending that data, ensuring that it's all cohesive and accurate and up to date, and then they're able to make decisions in real time based on real up to date data, and it's what makes us so successful. So I feel really lucky to be a part of this team. I've grown a lot in this journey as an analyst, and I'm surrounded by analysts that love data. I mean, Imajery is all about data. It's always been a data-driven agency, and now we just have a lot more data to work with, so it's that much more powerful. We can look at the case study now, which is one of our clients. We started incorporating first-party data for them a little over a year ago, towards the end of 2022, beginning in 2023. And it's really interesting in this case because this is a client that has all transactions occurring offline. So from a marketing perspective, our team's focus is to drive leads. And leads on their own can have values applied to them, but it can be tricky, and ultimately the values are educated guesses. We started incorporating their first-party data into our analyses, and this data includes actual profits. So we're able to see what profits are coming from what leads. We're able to determine which campaigns and keywords are driving actual profits. And not only that, but we can see which specific products and services were being driven by which campaigns. This allowed the team to fine-tune our marketing strategies to maximize profit while also lowering costs. And the results are strong. They speak for themselves. The first 4 months of 2024 saw a 37% increase in profits coming from paid ads compared to the same time period last year. And even more amazing is that this was done with 20% less ad spend. We could never have done this if we didn't have access to this data. And moreover, we wouldn't even have been able to know that we had done it if we didn't have access to this data. So really crucial piece to leveling up your marketing is getting that first party data in there. First party data is powerful, used intelligently, and can increase the impact of your marketing strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So this is a quote from an organizational theorist named Carl Weick, who started to talk a lot about sense making in organizations. And as he said, it's a social process where individuals and groups fashion an understanding of new phenomena through iterative testing of plausible explanations. And what that means as far as your organization goes, we're talking about data automation and consolidation, and really not so much as how to automate data or how to bring that in, but what doing that can enable for your organization and for your analysts. Analysts largely should be considered sense makers within an organization. They help transform this raw data into valuable insight. And we've sort of been on this thing of data into insight, data into insight. And what that really means is data, and don't repeat this to too many people, but data is kind of useless. That's my hot take. But because data itself doesn't really do anything for you. You can have mountains and mountains of data, but if you're not looking at it and you're not analyzing it, it's really not valuable to you. When you start to look at it, maybe you start to do some of those KPIs, do a little description of what's going on inside that data. That turns it into information. So data information is really our first step that is enabled through automation. That information is then started to be, that's where you start to apply those more advanced analytic techniques, right? So I've got this information, I have my descriptive analytics. Maybe I've started to categorize all of my data. Data categorization is another big thing. And then I can start to apply different models, different analytical techniques, and turn that into actionable insight. And that's where the real value is. So following that same sort of pattern in the analytics techniques of describe, predict, and then prescribe, sort of the same thing. You've got data, which, as I mentioned, kind of useless until you start to do something with it, until you enable your teams and your analysts to really bring that data in, start to action on it, and then provide the insight as they layer in not only what they found, but also the subject matter expertise involved with that. And the way automation empowers those analysts is to continue with those more strategic tasks. Is when we talk about analyzing data, we say that, or I say we, but myself and others, is 80% of the time of an analysis goes towards data munging. Munging, which is a great term, just sort of means getting the data, making sure it's accurate, looking for any errors inside of it, correcting errors, and just sort of handling it to make sure it's prepared to do something. It takes about 80% of the time. And the analysis itself takes the other 80% of the time. So, you're saying, all right, now I've got 160% of my time dedicated towards one analysis, because the munging part, which is really, it is an important step. Obviously, you want to make sure your data is accurate. You want to make sure everything is copacetic with it, but it's really not what an analyst should be doing. They should be able to sit down and have trust that the data was handled correctly, it was automated correctly, that the veracity of the data is there, and that they are then able to take that data and do something with it. The next part is, sort of the conveyance of that. So once we have actionable insight, we can talk about conveying that data. It's not simply, I have my data and I've got my insight. That's where we start to layer in those subject matter expertise, whether it's coming simply from the analyst because they have that experience or knowledge, or that analyst is reaching out to some of the senior marketers. Maybe you have someone who has a lot of information on CPG, as an example. You can go to them and say, hey, here's my analysis, here are my insights. Help me make sense of all this. As I said, they are what we consider sense makers within the organization, how they convey data, not only to your clients, but also to your AEs, or also, to your internal teams, whether that's the strategists or, even further up the ladder. And really the implementation aspect of this is key to the success of these analyses, because you want them to spend as much time as possible on analysis to get that continued insight. And that's sort of where everything sort of hangs in the balance in terms of automation. So through this automation and consolidation into one unified view, because you don't want to be sitting there with disparate resources or having, 80 different databases that you're constantly looking at, where you can go in and pull data from these different forms and join it together, having that one unified view, that data warehouse. Or, I know some people have been saying, what if I don't have the availability for that? You can automate into a Google Sheet as well. Just having that data readily available to use is really what's important here. So that you can continue to deliver those powerful, actionable insights to drive results to both your customers and internal and external stakeholders. So in conclusion, as you start to master these analytics consolidation techniques, agencies can really start to transform the challenge of big data into more of an opportunity. And as I said, the techniques that you can use to sort of bring analytics data into a consolidated form, like I said, whether we're talking about bringing all this data in through an API into a data warehouse, whether we're using Supermetrics as an example to bring data from our platform into Google Sheets or into Looker Studio, Excel, any of these other platforms that you want to use, being able to do that and consolidate that is really what's important here, and that's what's going to help create a plan to leverage all of that data for analysis. So you can leverage all of these automation techniques in order to build out a more robust system where you can do, your trend analysis, where you can start looking at all your descriptive and predictive analytics that you have available to you, so that you're ready for that sort of increasing volume. And as I mentioned, just automating from the start can be daunting. It can seem like a little bit of a maybe hitting a fly with a sledgehammer in some cases. If you are smaller, you may not need a data warehouse, and we necessarily don't want to sell you a data warehouse, right? We want to make sure we're right-sizing the opportunity for you, and that you're also right-sizing the opportunity for what you have to invest in. If you're a small team that you don't know SQL, you don't have the ability to work with a data warehouse, Google Sheets is absolutely fine. You can do a ton of analysis in there. There are very, very complex analyses that you can do within Google Sheets, and they've added and Google itself continues to add a lot of capabilities to the Sheets product itself. So we encourage you to embrace these methodologies, whether you're at the very start or you're at the very end. to enhance your agency's performance and drive those superior results for those clients. And hopefully, you're staying ahead of the competitive landscape. So now I know we've got a few questions, so we'll drop into the Q&A and start here. So let me see here. I think the first one I see here is how do we assign values to touch points when users opt out of cookies? Can you suggest some alternatives for cookie opt out? So that's an interesting one. Cookies are going away. I believe Google pushed it back to the start of 2025. Who knows if they'll push it back again? So assigning values to touch points when users opt out of cookies is really tough. That's where we start to layer on first-party data. That's when Nick was talking about call rail, where we get involved more with that side of things. You can also rely more on the data-driven modeling, which is, that's a tough one because it's really difficult to do your own version of data-driven modeling. You usually, not always, but usually don't have the amount of data that is required to do reliable and extensive data-driven modeling. So in this case, you want to leverage your first-party data, talk to your clients, see what you can get out of where they're getting their first-party data, see what you can get out of them. If it's CPG, see if you can get into IRI or something like that in order to really tell that more holistic version of what's going on with your campaigns. But you're absolutely right. The death of cookies is upon us. And a lot of agencies are going to find it tough to sort of navigate in that space, especially when you're reliant solely on that. But, setting up the Google Analytics for correctly, using your UTMs and leveraging the tools that you do have can really enhance that experience and sort of get you over that hump. Nick, do you have anything for the cookies and the touch points?
Yeah, I think you touched on all the main points. The big piece that's going to be a part of it here, I think, moving forward, is that we're going to have to rely more and more on these black box solutions of data-driven analytics, data-driven attribution. Google has been saying, although I've yet to see it actually work in practice, that their consent mode will allow anonymous pings to be picked up, and then those anonymous pings will be able to be modeled using previous data or visible data rather, so that they can say, okay, they can actually attribute using machine learning. I don't know how well that's going to work in practice. I'm sure it will get better in time, but I do think that there is going to be a period of time over the next year where visibility is going to be significantly reduced, and the data-driven solutions are going to catch up, but I don't think they're going to catch up quite in time. So we just need to keep pushing with the options we have available to us.
Awesome. And that question was from, hopefully I get the name correct, but Ashley. So next is from Charlotte. Do you have any tips on automating data within Google Sheets if you don't have budget for automation platforms? Nick, I'll let you start with this one.
I guess I've been spoiled because I use automation platforms. So, you can automate data in Google Sheets, like you can pull from other Google Sheets using formulas. There are formulas available to import data. So if someone has, or if you have a CRM that can feed data into a Google Sheet, I've seen that work in practice quite well. So every time a specific action is created by a user, that gets a row of data added to a Google Sheet. And then you can use multiple Google Sheets to import the data, transform that data. And then I actually have a daisy chain of Google Sheets working in that way to upload offline conversions to Google Ads for one of our clients. So there are ways to use Google Sheets automation. And the uploads are automatic too. So all of that's automated, and I'm not using any platforms other than Google Ads and the CRM in that case.
Awesome. Being with Supermetrics, do we have any tips for automating data within Google Sheets? Absolutely. The Supermetrics plugin will allow you to do automatic data refreshes daily, and in some cases hourly. So that would be, where, like I said, that'd be where I would start. You can go to supermetrics.com, check it out, get a free trial, and see how that works for you. And it's a great place to start. It's a great place to start with your automation, because it can grow with you, and that's one of the big important things that we've been talking about as well is continuing that growth. Kelly asks, what tools or software would you recommend for predictive modeling and scenario planning? Basically answering the client question, if you spend X in marketing, how much revenue should we expect to get? So this is kind of the tools or software I would use. So I worked, prior to Supermetrics, I worked at a data science consultancy for 6 years as the lead data scientist there. And we were owned and worked alongside a marketing agency. So this is something that I answered routinely. And for predictive modeling, I used R. So I did not use a tool. In this case, everything was programmed using the R programming language and occasionally Python. This is a question that you really want to say, where you really, I want to say need an analyst, but you need someone with an analytical mindset. Not that they have to program it, I'm not saying everybody should start and go from that aspect of it, because it is very time consuming, it is not easy, and it is not scalable, right? And at the end of the day, me sitting there building bespoke models for everyone is not scalable. So I would say that you do have tools. You can actually do some predictive modeling within Google Sheets itself. You can run ARMA models and machine learning models, predictive models within BigQuery. They do have some functions in there. And there are some more other platforms out there where you can take advantage of. I think one called Alteryx, I believe they have some predictive models built in. But that's where sort of where I would start figure out, it's really figuring out what resources you have available to you. So starting with the individual and then moving into, do I have to get tools or can I do it sort of on a bespoke level? But that's a really tough one. That's where I would start.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Zach. It is exactly that. It's bespoke. It's a lot of programming. There are solutions coming down the pipe. BigQuery, if you are using BigQuery, there are some advanced analytics capabilities that are becoming kind of built in slowly. I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now we're able to into BigQuery and very easily do these kinds of analyses. Things are advancing pretty quickly, but yeah, as it stands right now, completely agree with you, Zach.
So Levi asked a question, what do you think about conversation around so-called zero-party data? So how can we utilize that in Supermetrics? So zero-party data is really interesting. And if you're not familiar, it's really talking about information that a company owns and they generate by themselves that they decide to then share with an agency or a brand when interacting with it. So one of the best ways, so I saw a talk from the founder of a company called Brewmate in LA, where he mentioned over and over again, his big thing that he said was key to his success. And I think, I don't recall the exact numbers, but I think he went from 0 to 10 million in sales in a year on Shopify. And his big thing was the post-sales survey. So zero-party data, it's great. The way it's implemented is going to be key in how you can actually turn that sort of information into insight. And then they have to elect to share it with you as well, right? If you're marketing for a company and you're doing their campaigns, everything, and they're unwilling to share that data, there's not much you can do. But the way you can utilize it is either have them send that to you. We also have ways that we can ingest it with like a JSON connector. And we are also building out and have available a file import if they want to send it over manually. So there are some ways within Supermetrics that you can utilize that. May not always be the cleanest way. Zero-party data is probably one of the more confusing because you don't know necessarily where it's coming from. But we do have solutions as long as it's coming through and something that is machine readable. Let me see here. Any tips on systematically turning data into information? So for me, I would say systematically. So again, we say there's this sort of data is useless statement and then information, that first part where we're starting to get it into a way where we can interact with it and start to derive insight. And really the systematic way to do that is through automation. And like I said, whether it's a data warehouse or you're automating it coming into Looker Studio or Google Sheets, the real key there is making sure that you have a scalable and reproducible way in which you're observing this data and starting to analyze it. So those are really the systems and frameworks that you're looking for there. It's, how do I get this data into something where I can make sense of it? I think a dashboard is great. A lot of people really, love their dashboards, but never look at them. And I think that's, a problem you probably see with an agency is if you ever take a look at how often someone is accessing the dashboards, sometimes it's very low. And one of the best ways is for you to be actually looking at them regularly, for you to be observing them regularly, to observe those Google Sheets regularly and start to turn that into information. So that's really the systematic ways, the automation piece of that, where it's bringing it in, because then you are ensured by the veracity of your data. It's to be accurate, and then you can observe, what is going on, and that's sort of my answer to that. I don't, Nick, if you have anything you want to expand on there.
Yeah, no, I mean, automation, right? Like that's, you want to systematically turn data into information, figure out what you want your information to look like, build out the automated pipeline that makes that information make sense. All of the blending that occurs automatically every single morning that makes sure that our reports has all the data from Facebook and Google Ads and Google Analytics all rolled into one. That's our system, right? Keeping it automatic and trying to spend as little time on the nitty gritty as possible so we can spend the majority of our time actually analyzing.
Awesome. So I know we have a few more on here, and we can follow up with those afterwards. But I just want to move here to the who we are. So Nick, go ahead.
I'm Nick Baldessari, data lead at Imajery. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Link is right there. And you can reach Imajery. Check us out at imajery.com if you have any marketing needs.
Again, I'm Zach Bricker. I'm the lead solutions engineer in the US. You can always find us at supermetrics.com, and you can find me at Zach-Bricker on LinkedIn.